There is a football club that plays its home games in Africa, yet competes in the Spanish league system. A club whose story is chaos, with mergers, rebrands, relegations, promotions, and even the surreal experience of being forced to play their home matches on a totally different continent. In FC 26, this strange little anomaly finally steps into career mode, and that makes them something unique. A team with more history, quirks, and complications than almost anyone else that you could choose. This is the story of a football club that got caught between continents. This is the story of SD Ceuta and why they might just be the most fascinating save you can make in FC 26. How does a team from Africa end up playing in Spain's professional leagues? Why do they exist? Where have they come from? Well, to answer these three questions, we need to go back over 350 years. Ceuta is a small Spanish enclave on the northern tip of Africa, home to just 83,000 people. The city has been Spanish since about 1668, and for decades, its football clubs have struggled to really make a mark in Spain's big leagues. Tenerife has a similar population, Huesca has less, Eibar has about a third of the amount of people, but Ceuta just could not produce a worthwhile football team. But in 2025, everything changed. Against all the odds, AD Ceuta secured promotion to La Liga 2, ending a 45-year exile from professional football. This isn't actually the first time that a team from Africa has played in the Spanish second division. Atletico Tetuán, a club from what was then known as Spanish Morocco, played in the 21st season of La Liga all the way back in 1951. Tetuán actually had a very brief but impressive history. In its first 9 seasons, it spent 5 of them in the third division, 4 in the second, but in 1951, they became champion of the second division and was given entry into the first division. They managed to get 7 wins and 5 draws across 30 games, scoring 51 goals but conceding a massive 85. At home in the Estadio Varela on the North African coast, they could be dangerous. They famously thrashed Atletico Madrid 4-1 and held Real Madrid to a dramatic 3-3 draw, despite being 3-1 up at half-time. Away from Tetuán though, the long journeys and minuscule financial support were costly, and Atletico would get revenge with a crushing 8-0 win in Madrid. By April 1952, Tetuán would sit bottom of La Liga with just 19 points, and their brief stay in La Liga was over almost as quickly as it had begun. Still, that one season left a mark on La Liga that has never been replicated since. Because of Tetuán, Morocco had a permanent place in Spanish football folklore. Following Morocco's independence in 1956, a majority of the Spanish players and managers of Club Atletico de Tetuán moved to the neighbouring city of Ceuta, which had remained part of Spain. In the same year, 1956, another African-based club merged with Tetuán named SD Ceuta, and the clubs formed Club Atletico de Ceuta. This club would have a longer history than Tetuán. This team also reached the second division again, this time playing for 6 years in the second division with a highest finish of 5th place in 1965. This season was by far the most successful season for any African team in Spain, with Melilla CF, also from North Africa, finishing 12th in the second division as well. By 1968, the dream had basically collapsed. For decades, Ceuta's clubs were trapped in the regional obscurity of the 4th and 5th divisions. Another club from Ceuta, Agrupación Deportiva Ceuta, were founded in 1969, but in the summer of 1991, following severe economic problems, Agrupación Deportiva folded and there was no club in Ceuta. In 1997, they decided to form Asociación Deportiva Ceuta, and they reached the 3rd division in 2 years, but again, in 2012, Ceuta was relegated to the 4th division for unpaid wages to its player, and shortly after, Asociación Deportiva Ceuta was disbanded because of a €600,000 debt. In 2013, a new club called Agrupación Deportiva Ceuta Football Club was founded to inherit all of the club's histories. This is the club that we're interested in, the 5th attempt of building a successful African club in Spain, adopting the name, the colours and the history of its predecessors. They were nicknamed Los Cabalas or the Mackerels, and they slowly began clawing their way up the Spanish pyramid. In the Spanish football rules, all newly created clubs are forced to start at the very bottom of this pyramid. The local regional divisions where attendances are measured in dozens and most of the players are playing for free. The new squad was largely made up of players who had stuck with the previous Ceuta side until its financial implosion. They were pretty good for this level, but absolutely not superstars. Many of them were semi-professionals, they were working other jobs to support themselves, but knew that the city deserved more than Sunday League obscurity. But from that obscurity came some momentum. Within 4 years, Ceuta had earned 3 promotions, blasting through the lower levels of Spanish football. But then came the Copa del Rey. For most small clubs, this competition is either a money-making opportunity or a minor inconvenience. Maybe one game against another small team before inevitable elimination as soon as you play someone good. But some clubs can get lucky. The new Ceuta stunned Elche, a La Liga side at the time, and one of the biggest shocks of their round. And their reward for doing so was a game against Barcelona. For the players, just stepping onto the pitch against a Barcelona team that had Lewandowski, Rafinha and Busquets in the squad must have been surreal. For the fans, it was proof that their club could once again stand as equals with giant clubs. The scoreline didn't really matter, just the sight of Barcelona playing in Ceuta's modest stadium, the Estadio Alphonse Morabe, felt like confirmation. Elite football really could one day return to the North African coast. That night encapsulated what the latest rebuild meant. It wasn't just about the results or even winning promotion, it was about keeping their city's identity known throughout the world. Ceuta wasn't just a faded memory to the biggest clubs. They were alive again, and they could dream of something bigger. By the 2024-25 season, Ceuta weren't just making up the numbers in the 3rd division. They were legitimate promotion contenders. Los Caballas had clawed their way up into the Spanish 3rd division, the Primera Federation, and for once, the dream of professional football didn't feel like a fantasy. Thanks to that cup run, it felt almost close enough to touch. But before we can talk about last season, we need to give some context to why this club is in their situation. In 2025, there is no airport in Ceuta, only a heliport. So visiting teams either have to fly to Malaga on the main coast and take helicopters across the Mediterranean, or take an hour-long ferry ride and cross the Strait of Gibraltar. Alternatively, they could fly to Tangiers, leaving Spain altogether, and take a multi-hour coach ride through the desert. For most teams, it's the longest away day in what was a very long season. Just a couple of games before the end of the year, everything still hung in the balance. A draw wasn't enough to go up, Ceuta needed a win against Fuenlabrada to clinch promotion. 85 tense minutes ticked by, the match was locked in a draw. In the 87th minute, a corner came in, and Victor Corral found himself with some space. The ball flew into the back of the net, and history changed forever. The Estadio Alfonso Morabe erupted. Thousands were going crazy in the stands, players were celebrating, some fans were even crying. After 45 years of waiting, Ceuta were finally back in the Spanish professional leagues. For the first time since 1968, African soil would host matches in La Liga 2. That one corner goal is why they are now in FC 26. For most clubs, a promotion is a big milestone, but for Ceuta it was something far deeper. On the night that they secured promotion, the celebrations weren't just about moving up a division, it was decades of frustration and false starts and rebuilds finally coming true. For the people of Ceuta, it meant they were now going to be recognised. They weren't just a distant outpost that Madrid and Barcelona would occasionally remember, they were back on the footballing map. Ceuta is unlike anywhere else in Spain. If you walk down its streets, you'll hear Arabic, Spanish, Berber and Hebrew tongues. The city is layered with identities, sometimes divided by politics or religion, but in the stadium, these barriers blur. Thousands pour into the stands from every area of the city, waving the same flags, chanting the same songs. The stadium has become this rare place where the enclave feels united. The president of the club, Luhe Hamido, captured this better than anyone else when he said in the Morabe, the stadium, it doesn't matter about race, religion or social condition. We are all as one. That philosophy isn't just PR, it's visible in the fans, the makeup of the squad, and in the way that the club has carried itself through collapse after collapse. So when Ceuta removed to professional football, it was the culmination of an identity crisis that had probably stretched across generations. A small city on African soil, overlooked by much of Spain, had finally earned the right to be known worldwide in games like FC 26. It's safe to say that the story of Ceuta is not clean or polished, it's very messy. 4 bankruptcies, multiple rebrands, years lost in the amateur divisions, but that messiness is what makes this club so real. Football isn't just about trophies or billion-euro transfers, it's about that stubborn refusal of small clubs to disappear and fans to not just support Barcelona and Real Madrid, despite how many times they're told that they should do. In Ceuta, that refusal has taken a life of its own. It's a city perched on the edge of two continents, forever caught between both of them, and that team now mirrors its resilience. When you load up FC26 and scroll past the usual giants of Europe, you'll now find SD Ceuta. On paper, they might look like just another small team, but behind that badge is 70 years of struggle, collapse, rebirth, and finally redemption. So if you're looking for a career mode save with real history, with real meaning, with a story that has already defied the odds, you might just find it here, in a city on the northern tip of Africa, in the blue and white of Ceuta, the Mackerels.